Hey everybody. Our very first lesson learned in 2013 was that if you're going to have an annual garden separate outside of something like a permaculture system where everything supports and protects each other, you're going to have a fence. So that's what this update is about. We decided to go with this 28-inch tall fence that is called rabbit guard. And it's called that because at the very bottom of the fence the wire is spaced very closely together and toward the top further apart. And they do that because it saves you a little bit of money rather than buying fence that is very close all the way around. So it was a simple matter of putting the fence around all four sides, and we just zip tied them onto the T-post. One thing I may have failed to point out in previous videos is the size of our garden is very deliberate. I knew I could buy this fencing in 50-foot rolls, but I didn't know if I could trust a manufacturer in actually selling me a true 50-foot roll. So the garden is 49 by 24 feet. That allowed me to buy 3 50-foot rolls and use one on either of the lengths and then one to go both of the widths. We simply cut them, zip tied them to the T-posts, and now we're ready to move on. While 28 inches is short enough for me to be able to step over the fence, there is a gate that's a part of this. Right now the fence simply extends past the gate and wraps around in such a way that it secures itself. However, a local friend has offered me an old chain link fence gate that they no longer need, so that we can put in a proper gate on this. So hopefully I'll be able to make that update relatively soon. Once we had the fence established, then we wanted to put chickens inside the pen so that they could help till up the ground. A lot of people were, I guess, presuming that I was putting the chickens in specifically so that their manure would be in that area, and that's a benefit, but it's not really the one I was looking for. I believe a lot in no-till gardening and leaving the soil as undisturbed as possible and doing things in a more natural way so that all of the elements that happen within soil can remain intact rather than disking up the earth or tilling up the earth and destroying those mechanisms that nature's been working on all off-season. So chickens were my solution to that. I wanted them to scratch just the surface where I'm going to plant seed, but not have to get all the way down into the soil. So lesson learned on this is we need a whole lot more chickens. I've only have 6 chickens. We've got, a couple dozen ducks, but ducks don't scratch, so they weren't going to do me any good in here. The chickens that we've got, most of them are bantams. When we put them in this area, the 2 roosters immediately just jumped over the fence. Even though we clipped their wings and all those good things, but the roosters weren't even fazed by it. They just saw the fence, jumped up on top, and jumped out. The rest of the chickens have remained in there. They haven't even tried to get out. So apparently the short fence will hold in a chicken, or at least a little banty. So it's something that you could look forward to. Our solution was going to be to put some plastic netting around the top temporarily if we needed to hold them in. But the cost to benefit ratio just wasn't there since these 4 were willing to stay in. I'm going to follow up behind them with a garden rake just to smooth things out and disperse things a little more evenly. I'm pretty happy with the results based on the number of chickens that we've got. There were some large hay piles in there from bedding in the rabbit tree, and they knocked those down and spread those out pretty well. The one thing they didn't help with at all was the one patch of the garden that is actually undisturbed earth, meaning I haven't tried to flatten it or anything. So I'm going to have to go in there and we're going to redo that little patch with the back to Eden method, with covering it up with paper and mulching it and so forth, to try to get that soil to the same place that the rest of the garden is in. So let me show you a little closer video. So this is the area of the garden that we planted in 2013. You may be able to see right here is where there was a large hay pile, and they've knocked that down and spread it out pretty well. The next section, in terms of how ready I think it is to be planted, is the entire back area. It too had a couple of hay piles that have been knocked down and spread out by the chickens. However, they didn't really, I think it's just a matter of how many chickens there were. It was just too much task. They didn't really scratch up the ground enough to level things out like I was hoping that they would do. So that's why I'm going to go in there with the rake and try to help out a little bit. And then this area is the undisturbed ground I was talking about. And I'm just going to use the tried and true back to Eden method, which I say is tried and true because that's how this started out. And probably for this season, that'll be the safe area to put our containers. We've had our containers up on our porch, and a couple of them the cats have decided was good digging soil, and a couple of them the children have decided was good digging soil. So that might have to be the safe zone for containers for this year. Some of you had asked in previous videos when I mentioned I was going to do this with the chickens to make sure I got some good video of the chickens doing their thing. Well, as you see, there's not very many chickens to watch, but I took some video for you. So I'll thank you for watching and ask you to subscribe if you haven't before, and just stay around for some little outroll on the chickens doing their thing in the garden. Thanks everybody. See you next time.